Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Footy Furnace. Round 2 is nearly in the books, and West Coast and North Melbourne are playing a close game over there in the West. North Melbourne jumped out of the blocks, but what a response from the Eagles.
The Eagles are doing really well. I think we thought the game was over halfway through the first quarter, but the Eagles fought back and are in front by a couple of goals.
Well, let's get into the early game straight away, Hirdy. There's going to be a lot of talk and conversation. I know it's early in the year, but there is ways that you can lose. Losing can be accepted with good reasons, only if you play up to the standard. It doesn't feel like Essendon is playing up to the standard at the moment. They got torched by the Port Adelaide pair. This should have been 100 points, but I'll give credit to Caddy and Kako. They kept boxing on the two young forwards and managed to put some score back on the board. But Jason Horne-Francis, early doors, we thought he was going to probably kick 8. He was kicking them from the impossible pocket. He was doing as he pleased. They run, rebound. It was as easy a game as you want to play, Hirdy, if you're Port Adelaide coming off the back of a disappointing loss in their eyes against North Melbourne the week before.
Yeah, absolutely. I think all Essendon supporters were hoping for a response after that poor loss last week against Hawthorn, but what they got was really, what we don't know what we got really. If it wasn't for Caddy and Kako, I think it would have been beaten by even more. But, you know, Essendon across the board couldn't keep the ball. They couldn't win it around the stoppages, and they couldn't stop Port Adelaide using the ball and going back and forth. The three phases of football, to keep it simple. Essendon was absolutely smashed in, and it leaves a lot of questions about where Essendon are at the moment and what sort of football they're playing. I mean, what are they trying to do? I think that's the question people ask. You look at teams in similar situations. You look at the Richmond. You know what they're trying to do. You look at Essendon at the moment. What are they doing? Clearances, they got absolutely smashed. Time and possession, they got absolutely smashed. And metres gained, they got absolutely smashed. If you win time and possession and metres gained, you win 89% of games. And clearly here, 51% to 37 is a massive differential. That metres gained is a massive differential. In the last 2 weeks, against Hawthorn, Hawthorn had 13 minutes more of the ball, had the ball for 13 minutes more. And this week, Port Adelaide had 12 minutes. More of the ball. That's a lot of time on the clock where you've got more of the ball. If you don't have the ball, you can't win many games of football. And this is the uncontested marks against 150 and 155. They're the two record uncontested marks against in the history of the Essendon Football Club.
It's difficult to argue with any of that, and I'm not going to. And 107 total more marks by Port Adelaide. Yep. Aliir had 19 marks himself, and I'm a bit with you, and we've had these discussions with teams that have been down the bottom of the ladder, and we're as positive as anybody can be, but I'm a bit with you. I'm trying to work out what you're trying to achieve or what you're trying to hang your hat on, and like I said, you're going to get beaten. They are in a different phase to other sides who are pressing for the top 6, but what is it? Like, what defines Essendon's football at the moment? And You tell me what it is.
I'm not sure. And the other stat, which is probably which is huge, is in the last game of last year, 26 inside 50 marks against. Last week, 23 inside 50 marks against, and this week Port Adelaide took 25 marks inside their forward 50, which is, you just can't win games of football. So for the Essendon Football Club, it's back to square one. There have been 2 rounds of poor football. Where they go, I think it's really going back to training and working out what are the fundamentals, what are the things we want to be good at and want to be known for. Is it they want to be a great contested football team? Is it they want to be a great defensive team? Or they want to be a great ball movement team? Choose one of them and start there.
Well, let's take a listen to Brad Scott in the post-match presser.
I'm a coach who very rarely questions lack of effort, lack of fight. Because I think these guys well enough that they'll always give that. But there's no doubt we're demoralised, and that can appear to look like lack of effort, lack of fight. But
that's worrying to me that they're demoralised in round 2. I mean, I think they've had obviously a poor start, but being demoralised is, that's a big statement coming into round 2, because from demoralisation to actually being strong and winning games of football is a long way to go.
That was a longer press conference, of course, and there was a bit earlier in that where when he was trying to identify what is going wrong, and I'm not going to hang Brad Scott out to dry on it, but a lot of the language is around us with the ball, and it seems like they're identifying their errors or their lack of fight in the game because they turned the football over. But when you highlight these numbers, it's actually not that side of the ball at the moment. There's no defensive structure. There's no clear intent. It looks like the conversation needs to be had where you strip it back, and I've said this with you millions of times. I had junior coach who came up to me and said, do you actually understand what we're doing? Because we can fix that. Like, I can walk you through it, I can show you videotapes. Are you physically capable? Now, that might be an issue for a number of these guys. And then the worst bit is if you get the answer that you're not after is, are you choosing not to do it? And that actually helps you weed out the guys you don't want at the club. But it was all about our attack. They can't even get the ball to attack. So it just feels like he's seeing something that maybe we're not, and clearly he's involved more than we are, and you have to lean on that because he's as close to anyone. Well, he's the closest to anyone.
Yeah, look, and that's what I think we're saying. We're not sure what they're trying to build. We can't see an obvious style of football and what they're trying to build. And we might be old school, Jimmy, but I've always gone back to the fact, if things aren't going right for you, what are your fundamentals like, and what are you working on your fundamentals? That's your defensive fundamentals, your attacking fundamentals, and how you win the ball, how you outnumber, how you make sure you control the game in one facet of the game. And at the moment, Essendon, too many missed handballs, too many missed kicks, turning it over in bad areas. And we're spending a lot of time on Essendon, but all credit must go to Port Adelaide, who harassed and worried them out of the game early on and really put them on the back foot in an away game.
We made a joke last week that the lawyers will be making a lot of money out of the AFL. Well, physios and medical teams and scanning images, places will be making boatloads this year because the injuries continue to rack up. This one was pretty gross from Connor Rozee. He said post-match that he's very positive, but it didn't feel great at the time. And a lot of people suspect that he hyperextended his knee, didn't go in the right direction. But there's talk of some nerve pinching, and I think they're going to try and get to the bottom of Port Adelaide. Bergman came off. Of course, Mason Redmond was injured early in the game. Had to go down the rooms and saw no further part in the game. 2 metre Peter, that was straight after a big towering mark, which actually looked pretty good early in the game, and Dyson Sharp was another one. So the injuries started to rack up, which was a very hot game over there. Players were going down with cramp early in this game, well, earlier than expected. So the start of the third quarter, there was players with cramp.
Yeah, and you hope for Essendon's sake it's not the injury curse like they had last year, but it just goes to show the injuries in round 2 or 3 rounds for some clubs have been astronomical and really going to affect the strength of the competition.
Fremantle were too strong for Melbourne, and we mentioned one of the talking points was injury, but the other talking point coming out of this round, and I think will drag on all week, will be taunting.
Yes.
Paddy Voss has been fined $1,000 for his interaction with Harrison Petty, rubbing the back of the scone, and then continuing on. Now, this is going to divide the football public here, Hirdy.
That's actually a free kick, you know. You can't go and touch someone above the neck. If free kick was paid straight away for rubbing his head, you wouldn't do it.
Well, this is the balance. There's lots of silliness that goes on post a goal.
Yeah.
And umpires pay free kicks. But I feel like that actually emboldens players now to do more of that post goals because how can I draw a free kick? But Eddie Maguire's been big on this, who we work with. But I think the rest of the football public is, do we want to bring in taunting? I know a lot of people in the media have already made their comments. There's a large element of AFL supporter base who go, well, no, don't soften the game. You got to have a bit of sledging and byplay. And I think there's a little bit of a difference between sledging and byplay and gamesmanship to taunting. But where you draw the line, I don't know how you can do that.
I like the way Paddy Voss plays his football. I love the energy he's put in the freo. I love the way he's turned around Essendon, so you shouldn't have delisted me. I've really liked his football and the way he's gone about it. But I'm against taunting in any way. I think that it's something we don't need in the game. Celebrate, be excited, carry on to a certain extent, but not in the face of your opposition or to the opposition supporters. I think it incites issues, and I don't think it's good for the kids who watch the game. I mean, we're not all about what is good for the kids, but that doesn't make our game any better, and we don't need it.
Hirdy, you know I'm a believer in Freo, and especially on their home track. They're pretty slick. And I keep wanting to highlight the forward handball, and we've got some numbers here. Handballs metre gained. They're first in the first quarter in particular, and this is where they're busting open the game. They're breathtaking first quarter against Geelong, and then they put Melbourne away pretty early. Melbourne fought on, and of course Geelong overran them. But this is what I'm liking to see. The forward handball forces players to join in from behind and leave the stoppage, which then gets you these looks. And I keep talking about, once you get the defenders where you can see their numbers, the back, turn them around, it's only going to take a poor kick or a drop mark really to get yourself back in the game. And it just confuses the opposition because they all want to press up, you all want to help out. But that forward handball, but you know better than most, it's the pattern that you run with that forward handball. But as soon as one happens or someone receives one, the energy it creates, because you always run harder if you're going to get the football. Yeah.
Do you think they'll continue to do it? Expect sides to continue to do that forward handball?
I want them to, but sides are going to go to work, and as we see as the season rolls on, you go to work on the opposition. But the reason why I'm want them to keep doing it is because they've got such a good defence that support it throughout the year. So the balance will come into it. They've gone pretty quick to start games. Now, they went a little bit too quick at times in the back half of the game against Geelong. They were able to sustain it against Melbourne. But I have faith in their back six, and that's why even in last year, I think they're a really good defensive unit as a team. So take a bit more dare with the ball.
Yeah, I would say though that teams, if I'm coaching against that forward handball, there are ways of stopping it, and that is a whole of team press at the time. You watch Melbourne there; it's a bit of a suicide press. One player went, one player didn't go. You've got to be concerted as a team that if your player in front of you goes, you've got to go. You've got to go. That forward handball, if it's looping rather than a 45 that's really quite sharp, can be cut off if you're a really good forward pressing team. On the Fremantle Dockers, Brayshaw and Sarong. Goals, goal kickers?
Yes, and I'm liking this early. Small sample size, I know, but I want this trend to continue. So in 2026, they've already hit the scoreboard, kicked 2 goals. The whole entire season last year, both those gentlemen kicked 7 goals. They are stars of the game. I don't think we can dispute Brayshaw and Sarong, but just even adding another level, and we see this with these 2 guys in particular, they come across as guys who constantly want to improve their game, add layers to it. Brayshaw kicked the first goal of the game, and it was that press forward, ball swings to him. He probably should have kicked 2. The second one, he'd normally knock over. Sarong, you think his goal against Geelong where he's charged forward. I just want to encourage them to keep getting those inside forward 50s and hit the scoreboard, because can you imagine those two having their usual 30 plus 10 clearances and then it's a goal or 2? I just think it elevates Freo even further.
I feel like Freo are starting to believe in themselves like other people believe in them in terms of their attacking capability. Like you were saying all last year, can you just attack a bit more? Because we believe in you doing it. And they maybe didn't believe in themselves. But the way they played the first half against Geelong and then this week, they're starting to believe in themselves. And as Nick Dacos is almost untaggable, can you tag Caleb Sarong anymore?
He's very difficult. Bolstrop did a reasonable job. I think as Freo was still going really well, I think he did a pretty disciplined job for quite some time, but then Brayshaw gets off the chain.
Yep.
So then
So if you tag him, the other one gets away.
Yeah, and you punish him by hitting the scoreboard and setting up lots of goals. Time to bring in the third member of our team, Julian Valance, and he wants to talk about Fremantle and their ball movement, all thanks to Foxcatcher Inside, powered by PointsBet.
Thanks, Jimmy. Yeah, I'm loving what the Dockers are doing, and I can trust that I think they're going to continue this throughout the season. Well, I hope, as you have said, we're hoping to see more of it. Let's look at what they've done so far. So they score 100 in the opening round, then 118 or in round 1, then round 2 they get 118. Now, look at their averages, obviously last year, 87. The year before that, 86. They were pretty stable around that mid 80. So they've definitely upped the ante with the handball, as you boys have said. But they've also exceeded the market expectation in both games this year. So the market at the start of the game versus the Cats had them to lose by around about 12.5. They get beaten by 10. Against the Demons over the weekend, it was 21.5. They cover that comfortably. The next 5 rounds are the key here, and I want to be with all of them. Tigers, yes. Adelaide, definitely going to be underdogs, but I'm keen to take them there. Collingwood gather round. I think if I was pricing it now, I'd probably have the Dockers $1.60, so we might get some value built into the legacy with the Pies. West Coast, yes, Carlton. I think they can win those games, but also cover the line as well. I want to be with the Dockers in that regard. And then if you go to further down the track for the season, I want to be with them top 6 and top 4. I think there's some value with the top 4 for the Fremantle Dockers. As you boys have said, if they can continue this forward handball, which I think they will, then they're going to be right there at the end of the season.
What's gambling really costing you? For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.
Well, that reaffirms how confident I am in Fremantle with Jules and PointsBet. Well, Adelaide and Western Bulldogs played an absolute cracker on Friday night. And Hirdy, you and I want to discuss Adelaide's ball movement. It's clearly a shift in the way they want to go about things. And what I'm seeing is they're trying to emulate Brisbane. Good side to emulate. They've absolutely pounded the last 2 premierships. But what I'm feeling is they've got the first part down pat, but now they've just got to add a second layer to it, which is the Brisbane layer, which we'll get into some footage really shortly. I reckon they're getting the ball, they're moving it on quick, but they've just got to challenge more when they're doing it. So they're actually going into a thing called slow possession.
Yes.
Brisbane do it called fast possession. So it's still kick mark and then you get the overlap handball. It's still possessing the ball, but they're just a little bit slower.
And Brisbane take the ball forward most of the time, like on a 45, not just sideways. I just think one of the reasons Adelaide lost the game on the weekend is they weren't daring enough with the ball. Move it a bit quicker, take that forward 45, because it's there only for half a second. The way Brisbane do it, they take it, and if it's not quite there's so much movement ahead that they're drawing their opponent out to create space for someone else to drop into and take that kick.
Especially when they've got that powerful forward line. We found a little clip. Let's go to the classroom here, Hirdy, and I'll get you to kick it off here. So the ball comes in, and this is what I like. So this is the difference. You don't just live behind the mark. You shift it really quickly.
Space opening up just in front of him. Just
bang.
Just past the Telstra sign, there's a player coming. You've got to take that straight away because it disappears.
And so the next bit here, I just want to highlight the two players in the middle of the ground. Now, the middle of the ground is a no standing zone or a no dawdling zone. So you're in to either get it or you've got to get out really quick because you've got to draw the Bulldogs players, in this case, out. At the moment, because you're slow, one player can actually come up and defend two. So the difference between what they're doing at the moment to Brisbane, I reckon they've got the first bit. It's, all right, get it and move it. So it's either kick it and handball, but it's actually coming from the players up the ground and how you challenge. So what you do is if you come in up through the middle, don't get it, you can flush out. You either flush out skinny side or you go diagonally across because it'll eventually come to you.
And if we can just play that again, we'll talk through it again, because what happens there is they're starting to take it. They're starting to take the 45. We'll keep on watching. We can see what kick they should have taken. Should have kicked it just past that Telstra logo there. Yep. There's players there. They go sideways. That's fine. But you have to now see it out. You have to see it out rather than kick a bailout kick, which ends up being a 2v1 because the Bulldogs are actually reading the play. But this is actually, I think, lazy kicking, because this is the bailout where you're kicking to a 2v1. Yep. That's not what you want, because it just gives the opposition back the ball. So if you're going to take it off the 45, you're going to move it forward, you're going to go into that more aggressive play, see it out. Don't give it up.
Yeah, and the last bit on that, the trap when you're going into possession is everyone goes, it actually takes a lot more work rate. And even when you see those ones that come down to the 50, they went there and they stopped, but you're actually chewing the space of somebody else to move up, which then becomes a nice, easy kick, and you can do it again.
When you're coaching players about ball movement, it's about how you make the ground bigger, but it's off the ball. It's not the person who's getting the ball who's got to do all the work. It's the players creating space who are doing all the work. There was about 10 Adelaide players there in any situation who needed to work together, not just the guy with the ball who was kicking to the person. It's everyone in that sort of 50, 60 metre radius got to move, shape, block, create space for that next kick on the 45. Because if you can get it up to to the outside of 50 or just on the square, and then get a handball, then you're into your forward line and you're in there with speed. And the Adelaide forwards, those tall forwards, all they want is ball with a bit of speed, a bit of isolation, a bit of space, and they're unplayable.
This game had plenty of big moments, plenty of Hyundai go big moments, and Isaac Rankin, this was an incredible kick. Obviously, first came back, he was a little bit scratchy, but I'll just pivot around. I'm about 48 metres out on the boundary line in the Eddie Betts pocket, and he gave a little bit of the tribute with this is my pocket.
We thought that was the match winner. I mean, that was the match winner at the time.
Yeah, but wait. Oscar,
I mean, it's a fantastic goal.
Oh, that's ridiculous. That's just pure talent.
Jimmy Bartel all over. You would have kicked a few of those.
No, I probably would have popped my quad. But Oscar Baker, this is so incredibly difficult to do, to generate the actual power and momentum. He's running to the boundary line where he finishes in the fence. Great celebration. Post-match, he said he carried on like a pork chop. If you're ever going to carry on like a pork chop, that's the moment.
And what happens when you're kicking the ball, because you're running towards the boundary line, kicking it, yes, it's spinning away from the goals, but as the momentum takes it, the ball slowly fades with that spin away and it drops in. You
sound like you're a man talking on experience. Was this requested or you've
No request. I know what's coming up.
Hang on. Well, what's going on here?
I don't think we need to show anymore.
No, let's keep it going.
But I think mine was a little bit closer than Oscar. I think Oscar's a fair way out, but what a goal it was.
Yeah, as we get on, you add meters and difficulties to it as well. Hawks and Sydney, first quarter in particular, we thought they were going to both put on about 30 goals. It was a blistering game.
Cracker.
And John Newcombe said post-game, it was a game of ping-pong and you were just waiting for it to slow down. But I want to highlight the Hawks' second half transition in particular. And this is what we're talking about. Everybody works. And I just want to pause here. So this is Amon. You can see Ginnivan's nice blonde mop. There's McDonald in the middle, and just Wizard Watson is just about to exit screen. So this is transition, and it doesn't just come from the kickers. You've got to work extremely hard. There's tracking down there. Big Mitch Lewis wheels and goes, gets it in deep to the big Chollywood. Look who bobs up. There's the Wizard. Here's McDonald. He misses that, and there's Ginnivan. So they're 120-metre efforts. That's how you do
It's
defensive
exact
position.
opposite to what Adelaide were doing. Wasn't it? Adelaide stagnant, not moving, not
They
getting
stopped.
out. This is Hawthorn just explode, both with length and depth, and create so much space for their great kickers to move the ball.
Swans, their tempo, couldn't maintain it, or should they have just taken a bit of pace off at times?
I thought that after they got about 20 points up halfway through the third quarter, and I really didn't think they handled the moment that well in terms of the way they used the ball both by foot and the speed of the ball, and also they got rushy around the contest. When you're up and the contest is really hard, sometimes you don't flick the handball out, and I think they just got caught in this mode of wanting to attack, when what the game called for was, okay, we're 20 points up, the game's Hawthorn are coming at us, like that's a nothing handball. That's a pressure, rushy handball from a very experienced player who should know better. Sometimes just turn to boundary, keep the ball in, and again, where's that handball going? That is not a handball you want. It's having a handball out into space when the Hawks are coming. I just don't think they've read that or felt the game enough. You know, it's the game's coming, you've kicked four, the opposition's coming at you. Someone's just got to change the mode of play, slow it down a bit, keep the ball in the contest, and they didn't do that. I think that probably cost them the game in the end. And
I think there was a great move done in the coach's box, and Hawthorn admit they probably didn't help out Josh Battle. They were losing the contest and coming out through the front. But I like the shift when they took Battle off Charlie Curnow, because you're losing two things.
Yeah.
So you're losing the battle, and it wasn't just Josh Battle. You're also losing his run and drive because he was getting tangled up having to take care of Charlie Curnow. You moved Tom Barrass, because if Charlie was just wanting to play deep and wrestle, now good luck wrestling Tom Barrass. He's in a different weight division. Josh Battle's a big man, but Tom Barrass is like the super heavies, if you want. And he played a magnificent game, Tom Barrass. I had him as my best on ground because the way he just intercepted the ball. The Hawks up their rating around the contested situation, which gave him an opportunity to really smother and nullify Charlie Curnow.
Yeah, look, a great move by the Hawthorn team, and Barrass fantastic. But I think Charlie needs to do more work. He needs to work a bit harder to get off his man, run a few angles, actually see what his opponent's got. His great strength is his running ability and his ability to cover the ground. I didn't see him enough times get up one side of the ground, get over the other side of the ground, draw him back towards goal square. What would Barrass not want? And that's for Charlie to get on his bike. I'm not saying get up too high or out of position, but continually be on the move. And I just don't think there was enough work right there. It's only 3 weeks for him. He's fitting into a new team, so let's give him a bit of a chop out. But I just think that the absolute movement to put your opponent under pressure wasn't there.
Yeah, he kept the same game plan, but you need to change for the different blokes he was playing on. Three-quarter time out west. Eagles by 5 goals. So North Melbourne's got some heavy sledding if they're going to get their back-to-back wins. For more on the Hawks and their ball movement, here's Jules Valance with Foxcatcher Insights.
Thanks, Jimmy. Yeah, talk about the Hawks and how they use the ball. Well, let's run the numbers on their uncontested stuff. So if they win the battle with the uncontested ball, it's really outrageous. So 21 of the last 29 games they've played, they've won the uncontested game. Now, we break that down to the 21 games. 17, they win the football match. So 81% win strike rate. The market expectation sits at 65%, so they're blowing that out of the water. That's a positive sign. And then you go to the reverse. 8 games, they've lost the uncontested game of those 29. They've only won 2 of them. So this is the key factor, I think, for these other teams coming up against them throughout 2026, is you just got to get the ball back off them. You don't allow them to chip it around, do what they do, and then obviously that's how they score. Key factor, uncontested ball, beat them in that regard, and you're halfway there.
What's gambling really costing you? For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.
Footy Furnace, brought to you by Hyundai. Get a deal you'll be proud of at Hyundai. Fiji Airways, Sun, Sea, Smiles, Fiji awaits. And Brady Hotels and Apartments, Melbourne CBD accommodation just minutes from Marvel Stadium and the MCG.
Well, the Giants and Saints put in the Saturday afternoon shift, but there was a 50-minute delay in this game with lightning in the area, and it felt like the Giants would have happy to just shake hands and called off the game because their poor starts were at it again. They were chasing tail throughout the game, and it probably makes you think, Hirdy, it makes it really difficult for Adam Kingsley because everybody saw, that fantastic package of before the Swans game last year. He gave them the big roast. probably gave them a bake last week in round 1, but you can't keep going to the well to bake them at quarter time and half time.
No, you can't. I think it was probably just ill-discipline and just not being ready for the game. But what do you do then if you can't bake them? What do you do? I mean, how do you prepare them better? Because I mean, I'm sure he thought they were well prepared going into the game, but just the way they went about it. In the first half wasn't right, but I thought even when they came at St Kilda, they didn't use the ball properly. I mean, we've sort of got similar mentors around football, and with Bomber Thompson and also Brendan McCartney, and they always talk about using your numbers around the play. And the Giants, I know it was wet, and I know you want to kick quick, but look at this one here, Toby here. He's got players out. He's got players he can give it to. He had Briggs, he had Callahan, even Briggsy here. You're kicking to an out number. You have to use it round the number. So when you're coming at a side, when you've got the game on your terms, you can't just quick kick into the forward line. That is just irresponsible. And, you know, I love Cogs and I love Toby the way they do it. But as senior players, you have got to use the ball better, and you can't just be bombing it in when they've got a spare behind the play. And I think St Kilda have been licking their lips. They only just won the game, St Kilda. The Giants, given their poor start, had to use the ball and use their numbers with their ball movement. I'm sure they would have won the game.
Or identify that's the way we're playing and change your structure. Keep the 6 forwards at home and deeper.
True.
At least it gives you a chance to win the ball at ground level. Does this win kickstart the Saints season? I didn't buy into they were under pressure because obviously they played a very good Collingwood, well-organised Collingwood side, and it's very early, but sometimes you just need to get that first one and build some momentum.
It's a long season and you pick up the wins when you pick them up. I mean, looking at on paper before you go into the year, you would have thought it's a tough game anyway with if the Giants had their full complement of players on the ground. So I think it's a good win. It builds their season. You can still see they're not as connected with the new players as they want to be, but are they a better side than last year? Yes, and we'll wait and see how they go.
Had a great highlight out of this game. The Fiji Airways high flyer, the Flying Viking, Alex Taru. If you're heading to the States, Fiji Airways flies daily from Sydney, Melbourne and Brisbane through Fiji to Los Angeles with a quick stopover of under 3 hours. This guy is going to be a Mark of the Year contender nearly every week. He's got something in his shoes. Like they need to check his boots. He just goes straight up. I was down
at Trevor Barker Oval today in Sandringham, and there's a lot of similarities between the great Trevor Barker and Alex Taru.
Well, G Saints fans will be happy with that. Gold Coast, it was a good dress rehearsal for them coming to the MCG. They don't get to come down very often. Taking on the Tigers is the 100 on for Ben King, and it's a bit of a retro footy. 18 kicks. 16 goals won for the year. He's pacing pretty well.
I'm not sure even Plugger had those sort of stats. I'm sure Plugger even passed a couple in his career, but you know, he's just kicking at goals and fantastic. And look, they haven't played a lot. He's going to get a lot of looks at the goal. Fantastic. He's kicking so many goals. 100. I'm not going to put my hand up yet for that, but let's wait and see later in the year. And there's going to be plenty of games against lesser opposition where we get a chance to kick goals. Staying injury-free is the key.
Couldn't find any chase-down tackles in your career or my career, but Maurice Rioli might provide enough for both of us. This chase-down, this is what he's in the side for, and we just want to see more and more of it because you see the reaction he gets from his teammates, and especially when he tackles a family member as well and runs him down.
Look at the little tap on the head at the end of it.
Yeah, you can see him look around and just go, oh, no, you've got me, because you're going to remind me of that at the next family barbecue.
It was a fantastic post-game interview, I think, on Fox TV after it. Just see the camaraderie of the two family members and the happiness on their face. They're both out in the ground. And yes, footy's about winning and losing. But sometimes a moment like that transcend football.
We talked about it off the top and this morning, a spate of hamstring injuries and soft tissue injuries, which gets to the debate. Have we gone too fast? Have we gone too quick? Are we well prepared? Are we over prepared? And it's a fine balancing act with, you know, with all the players going down. We want to see the best players in the game. That one, he sort of got not pushed.
That one.
Not pushed, but it got him out of his usual stride pattern. Tom Lynch has had a series of injuries, which, you know, impacts, you put different loads through your body, but we're starting to stack them up, these soft tissue injuries in the game early, and good players.
It feels like every year there's a common thread with injuries. I mean, it was syndesmosis one year, it's groins the next year, and this year it seems to be hamstrings and serious hamstrings. And I think the Calamarchi injury with the really high tendon one on Friday night, that was a really dangerous one where your straight leg, you got power, your straight leg, your plant, and all the force goes through that tendon. Good luck to to Archie on that. But we are seeing a lot more hamstrings than we're used to. Is it the weather? Is it the speed? Is it the fact that no matter how much you condition, you just can't get yourself ready? But I think it comes down to something like they don't get enough time with the players either. I think the players come in off their own programs, have limited time with the clubs, and are they preparing them to play football or as athletes? I think there's something in that.
For more on an injured superstar of the comp, here's Julian Valance with Foxcatcher Insights.
Yeah, it's interesting, boys, to talk about those injuries. And I'm going to talk about a key injury about a Sydney Swan player in terms of Goulden, OK? So we've got a bit of a sample size, so we're going to run the numbers on this and the impact it's having on Sydney in terms of performance. So the 14 games without Goulden, 5 wins, 9 losses. Cut that down into, well, the market, what is their expectation? Should they be winning these games? 36% win strike rate, market expectation at 50%. So in essence, really when you look at it, they should have won 7 of the 14. They're dipping below that, obviously, by 2 games. Now, the 4 games ahead are really interesting for me here. West Coast, yep, probably in the wrong comp. But Gold Coast, GWS and Bulldogs, I need to see something that they can flick it. Now, they were pretty good against Hawthorn. No doubt they were competitive and they were right there in the game. But they do miss Goulden, and I don't know if they can solve that fix right now. Those 3 games against that opposition, I'm going to be against Sydney unless I see them do something a little bit different to be able to cover the loss of Goulden. So that's my knock on the Swans without him. And in another note, well, you boys last year identified Jez Cameron to kick 100 goals deep into the season, and he looked really good there for a little bit. We put up a price at PointsBet, and then he absolutely just stopped. So I put it down to you boys mentioning it. So I'm worried for Ben King here because you flagged it again. 100+ goals up on the PointsBet app. $21 for him to do it in the home and away season. Well, you can include the finals, and you can take him at $8. Good luck.
What's gambling really costing you? For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.
If you're heading to the footy or just exploring Melbourne, stay at Brady Hotels and Apartments.
Offering great value across 4 CBD locations, all within walking distance of the MCG and Marvel Stadium.
Flinders Street and Hardware Lane feature spacious apartment-style stays, while Central Melbourne and Jones Lane put you right in the heart of the action.
Families and friends can enjoy Melbourne their way. Some head to the footy while others explore the city's best dining, shopping and attractions, all while getting excellent value for their stay.
Brady Hotels and Apartments, the smart, value-packed base for game day and city adventures. North Melbourne have started the last quarter very well over there in the west, kicking the first 3 goals. The current margin is 17 points, so they're trying their best, North Melbourne, and it'd be so great if they could go back-to-back wins. But we love seeing the West Coast Eagles. The number 1 pick here, Willem Dersma, is definitely a class player. He knocks this through from 50. That's hit the back fence on the full. They got their tails up. They started to win the contest. For the first quarter, Hirdy, North Melbourne were as slick as ever. Larkey was banging through goals from everywhere, and we thought, oh no, this is looking grim for the Eagles. But the response was fantastic. From their senior players too. I think that's been a bit of a knock with West Coast. I know they've got a lot of young, high draftees, talent, of course. We highlighted Dersma. We're always going to talk about Harley Reid, but Archer Reid took a big grab. But I like the work of Kelly. It was Baker, Cripps, a couple of goals as well. And then you throw in Graham. I think the senior boys really start to lift their stroke rate. Yeah,
and their pressure really came on around the ball too. I think North Melbourne didn't handle the pressure, and as with young sides, when you start to win the ball around the contest or pressurise them, North then started to miss some targets, some turnovers, goals from turnovers to the West Coast Eagles, brought them back into the game, and for a while there it looked like North Melbourne forgot how to play, because they were kicked a lot of goals and just forgot how to play. But it's tightening up over in the West a little bit. And it's a big game for both sides, but North we thought they'd taken that step, and this is a real step back if they lose.
It's a great thing when you've got a North Melbourne producer in your ear, because there's a lot of excitement. Now, Nick Larkey's just kicked his 6th. Margins back down to 11 points. So we'll try and keep you up to date. And hopefully for Nick Larkey, he keeps banging them through, because he might be the match winner. It's time for the early check-in. Thanks to our favourite hotel group, Brady Hotels and Apartments. Look, Rising Star watch this one.
Yep.
It was hard to actually think that this was his first game when you're watching him play last night. Christopher Sherry, obviously came across. He was only picked up about just over a month ago. But sometimes you wonder, how do these guys get missed? He looked everything you want in a high half forward, that role in football. He's dynamic, lightning feet. makes good decisions, and we hope we get to see another 150, 200 plus games, because that's the right kind of stuff at AFL level.
It is, and it's exactly what you need in a high forward. A guy who can get up, got plenty of endurance, but then got speed to get back into the forward line, to beat his man back, or to then dodge and weave. And I just think his physical attributes look like he's well suited to that game, and his skill level was quite high and won his own footy.
We better get off air because it looks like a thrilling finish out in the West. But Footy Classified tomorrow night, Sam McClure hosting, Matthew Lloyd, Damien Barrett and myself. You're back on Tuesday night. Footy Classified tomorrow and Tuesday. That's been another evening in the Furnace. Thanks for joining us, Footy Furnace.